So, you know, last week we did Roaring Twenties for Movie of the Week, and
Oh yeah,
this week we're doing a more contemporary film, although it's set takes place about the same time as Roaring Twenties, I believe.
yeah. It's like 1930s. Yeah, the 1930s. So just
1930s, yeah, yeah,
after.
yeah. So, and that is, if you haven't guessed it by, because I told you guys in the title, but it's Raiders of the Lost Ark.
One of the greatest movies of all time.
Yes, it's funny. I've watched this movie so many times, and recently it's been on my cable movie package channels a lot, and so I've been watching it. But today I actually took the time and watched it, because I've seen this movie so many times. Um, I kind of take it for granted, and I don't really pay attention to the movie because because again, I know everything that's gonna happen. I know, but I know like what Indy's gonna do and what the bad guy's gonna do and all, everything. I know how the movie goes, but today I actually like sat and I watched it, and again, it does not disappoint.
It's yeah. No matter how many times like I watch this movie, I'm still like, damn, dude, this is one of the really good ones. It's just even like I said, just like you, I've probably watched this a dozen times, and it's still just as awesome as the very first time I watched it.
Right? Yeah, like the little like some of the details, like I kind of now gloss over, but just like for some reason I started thinking that he always had that sack of sand, but it was
Doesn't.
he actually prepared that as he was entering into the ruins,
Yeah, yeah.
and so and also just taking note of like some of the talent, specifically Alfred Molina. It wasn't until later that uh, it wasn't until later that I had any semblance of who Alfred Molina was. But I was just like, oh wow, that guy's in this movie too.
Well, this Raiders of the Lost Ark probably has one of my favorite scenes in a movie.
Hmm.
I think I've talked with this about you is where the scene where him and Marion are in Egypt, and the Germans are starting to kind of close in on them, and it starts off with like a fight scene between Indy and a bunch of thugs, and then all of a sudden there's this big Arab guy, and dressed all in black, and he has this giant
Oh yeah, the
sword, and he
scimitar.
starts he starts like waving it around, do all this fancy like sword tricks. He just shoots him.
Yeah.
I laugh every time I see that scene. I love it. I think I'm probably
It,
gonna put that up as a background for like on my laptop, just because I love it so much.
yeah. Yeah. Do you know the backstory of that scene?
I do. Harrison Ford, I think, like during the filming of that scene, he had like some like horrible flu or something. He was really sick, and so I guess there was supposed to be some like big like fight scene between him and that guy, and he just didn't have the energy to do it. So it's like they improvised and he just shot him.
Yeah, yeah, because during in between takes, he's like, yeah, I feel really sick. Can I just shoot this guy? And so I guess they ended up doing that, and I don't know if they did both takes, but I heard that the stunt performer who learned how to do all those crazy impressive things with the scimitar was pissed off because that was, I guess, that was his time to shine, because he took the time to learn how to like actually use the sword and do all those crazy
That's what
things.
I
But
did.
then and it's like, oh yeah, we're not gonna do that scene anymore. And I heard he was really pissed off.
That is, I did not hear that part of it. That's pretty hilarious.
Right? Yeah,
Because
but this
Harrison was a fairly like he was a big star at that point. Like
yeah, I
was
mean,
83 when that film came out.
he was what?
I think it was what, like 80 because that movie came out what, 83?
No, I think it was like 80.
Was it that close after like was he working on Indiana Jones while Star Wars was still going on?
Yeah, I do think so. I know it wasn't in the 70s. I know it was like early 80s,
Yeah.
but it was before.
Yeah,
I know,
it
and
was on.
it was also before Jedi. Hold on, let me. Oh, it was 81.
Okay, I was off by a couple years. Yeah. So yeah, it was still like that was the year that Return of the Jedi came out too, wasn't it?
No,
Was
Jedi was 83.
okay, maybe that's what I was mixing up. I was mixing up those two release dates.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, that was Return of the Jedi was 83.
Okay, that's what I mix up Raiders and Return of the Jedi. So yeah, okay, I guess he was doing Indiana Jones while that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so to talk about the movie, and we'll we're just gonna focus on Raiders at this point. We won't dive into the whole trilogy. We're gonna talk about the trilogy. Don't worry, because you can't watch the first one and not watch the others,
Right.
except for that fourth anomaly that nobody.
Oh yeah,
nobody.
yeah. We don't have to touch. We don't have to go into Crystal Skull.
Yeah, it's
Nah.
like we'll leave that. We'll leave that to top men.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Anyways,
yeah, this was like quintessential like action adventure kind of film, and it was such a love letter to those old 1930s and 40s like serials that Lucas and Spielberg grew up with.
So if you guys have never watched Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Harrison Ford plays the character Indiana Jones. He's a professor of archaeology, and he goes off in search of rare artifacts and antiquities, and pretty much like he's this like kind of a tough, kind of one of those like tough guys, just going on adventures and kicking ass, all that kind of stuff. And he loves history and all this, and he wants to search for things that just are lost. And so it starts off with him in South America in search of this artifact in some. We're not really told where in South America, so we don't know like what South American tribe or whatever that he's he's looking for this temple for this artifact, and he's has a couple of guides with him who end up turning on him.
Well, three. Yeah, he starts off with three, and one of them kind of he runs into like this stone like idol thing, and then gets like frightened, and then bugs out, and then the other one like goes in with him. I think that was the Alfred Molina character. He goes in, like the second guy goes in with him, but like kind of betrays him, but then like gets his comeuppance because he accidentally trips one of the booby traps before, ends up dying, and then the third one after Indiana gets out of the ruins by the skin of his teeth, is killed by some tribesmen with poison tipped darts.
No, that guy. Remember he was the second guy to like kind of he went to go
Oh,
shoot Indy, and then like
oh
Indy
yeah, he
whipped his
pulled the gun
hand.
on him, and then he busts his whip out.
Yeah, and he runs off, and then when he emerges from the temple, that guy is all darted up.
Yeah, that's right. But
Um,
yeah, I mean, I
and then it's
think
like has one of the great scenes that's been parodied oh so many times with it has the Indy is trying to match the weight of this. It was like this golden monkey head, and
yeah, I was
so he's
like,
trying
yeah,
to
the
match the weight of the
idol.
sandbag, and he doesn't get it right, and he releases the booby trap, and there's the giant rolling boulder that's coming after him, and so like that scene has been parodied, by The Simpsons and all sorts of stuff afterwards. It's one of those great scenes in movies,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of sets us up in like to the actual story of the film. Is he escapes the temple and escapes from the tribesmen that try to kill him, and he goes on the search of the Ark of the Covenant. That in this story, the Nazis are apparently looking for the Ark of the Covenant to, they believing they're thinking that it's like has the power of God, and they're kind of talking more of it as like this like legend that does more so than reading kind of the biblical account and all that stuff. But
Right.
yeah, so anyways, you have this story of like where he's trying to beat the Nazis on the search for the Ark of the Covenant, and it takes him to reconnect with his former mentor's daughter, who used to be like, I guess, his lover, and another friend of his that and they try to go and search for these clues and try to beat them there, and that's kind of the story of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Hmm.
And an adventure ensues.
But I think one of the genius things that Steven Spielberg does with the character of Indiana Jones is he sets in Indiana as like this this intuitive like man's man. You know he carries a whip and a gun, and he's very knowledgeable, because he was able to bypass all of the temple's like booby traps and things, and he was intuitive enough to know like one of his guys was going to turn on him, and so they set him up as like to be like this paragon of manliness.
Yeah.
But after he's caught by the tribesmen, and he has to hand over the idol over to his French rival. He makes his getaway, and he's able to get onto the seaplane that I guess he came in on. And then as he's taking off, as the arrows and the darts are whizzing past his head, and he gets inside the seat of the biplane, he then they then introduce Indy's like I guess flaw, which is a fear of snakes. And I just
Yep.
thought that was I just thought that was like a genius move to like have Indiana Jones initially set up to be like this super capable and manly man, but then he's confronted, but he has an irrational fear of snakes.
Yeah. What's really interesting about him is not only is he's that like man's man, like, but he's not just some dumb oafish guy. Like he's a very knowledgeable, very cunning, smart guy. Hell, he's a doctor of archaeology. So
Right, and
he
he
studies
teaches, and
all the time.
he's a professor. And I think that's one of the things that I think are missing from the portrayal of men in movies nowadays, because it's like a well-rounded man. He's athletic, but he's also an intellectual. And I think
Yeah.
you know that that completeness of a man is kind of what been lacking, particularly in media. Like because the no longer are there the shows that depict like the Warren Cleavers or or the father knows best, or the Mike Brady's. Now it's like the oafish father, like Homer Simpson uh, or Ray Romano and Everybody Loves Raymond. It's like no longer does a man or a father you know uh, stern or like the head of the household. He's more like the media portrayal is more like he's a figurehead, and it's really the woman who's in charge of everything.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think just like that income, they're depicting an incomplete, and I think oftentimes inaccurate portrayal of men.
Yeah. That's I forget that, like, yeah, that happens a lot in our media nowadays, where it's just like, I think it's kind of I think if Indiana Jones was coming out today, um, like if it was just like a brand new concept, it'd be, oh, he's such a, toxic masculinity. And it's like, no, he's a smart guy. He's not just like a book nerd, that's talking about this stuff, but he's actually gone out to these places and experienced and done the work himself, and
Mm-hmm.
he's bringing the book and the practical knowledge of what he's seen,
Mm-hmm.
and he cares about the subject so much, and wants to. I mean, in some ways, yeah, he wants to make these discoveries himself and to be like well known, like, I'm the guy that discovered this or that, or but at the same time, like, he cares about history and wants to, like, let's learn the truth about, like, what about these things.
Yeah, and I mean, the
But it's just
often
like,
what was that?
no, I was saying, but if it was done today, it's just, yeah, it'd be kind of this, like, well, either it would be cast by, a woman would be playing the role, or it would be some sort of just
Or it'd be a male
goof.
feminist, and you'd have a what was it, underwater basket weaving degree, and
Yeah.
and he'd be triggered
he,
at all the cultural appropriation.
he would have been shot before he went into the temple.
Pretty much, yeah. He'd be even though he's the main character, he'd be the first one shot off, shot.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is, I think, yeah, I think the character of Indiana Jones is like a really great portrayal, and embodiment of the often, uh, you know, I mean, I guess it doesn't really apply to him, but the often misquoted, a saying of, jack of all trades, master of none. But what the actual quote was, or the actual saying is, jack of all trades, master of one.
Yeah.
So you didn't have so you didn't necessarily have to be an expert at everything. You just needed to know a little bit about a lot of things to become well-rounded. I mean, he wasn't like the greatest marksman, but he knew how to shoot a gun, or he wasn't the greatest fighter, but he was able to hold his own. And I guess like the only thing he was really truly trained as was an academic, which um, you know was proven in like that he was a professor at a university of archaeology.
Yeah. Like I said, just an overall like just cool. It's one of the cool characters in film. One of the tough guys in film.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like those type of characters that are tough and cool and smart, and someone that we can look up to. I see like how in like the westerns or back in like the 50s, 40s and 50s, that people looked up to those characters like John Wayne, and they were the cool tough guys that people wanted to be like. And I kind of see Indiana Jones as kind of like one of those guys for me. Like everyone wants to be Indiana Jones.
Right. I mean, cool. It's funny because like the heroes used to be people who do extraordinary things, or the people that we looked up to back, especially back in the day. They were pilots, they were cowboys, they were astronauts, they were people doing extraordinary things, remarkable things. But I mean nowadays, and I mean if you want to spread, widen the tent a little bit. You could even say, like, you can even include people who are, genuinely, being activists, like Martin Luther King. But they were doing, exceptional, remarkable things.
I think the thing I think the thing I like most about Indiana Jones is because I'm a kind of a book nerd myself,
mm-hmm.
and I love to read about history and what people have discovered, and trying to find out like the truth about what really happened. And someone like that who's an academic, like a doctorate of archaeology, and it's like he's going out and going on these adventures. It's like I could do that too.
Well, right, but he was like actually doing stuff and like actually being like remarkable, as opposed to nowadays. Like if you are thrown out of Starbucks, you're called a hero, or
yeah.
but you get what I mean. It's just like it's nowadays, like if you are somehow perceivedly victimized, then you are labeled a hero.
Well, I mean that bar has been set so low nowadays. But just for my own life, kind of being a book nerd, is Indiana Jones is he's a book nerd too, and
right.
He's going on these adventures, and is still the cool tough guy, even though he's smart, but he's cool. And there's not too many characters in movies quite like that.
Word.